Thank you, Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My written testimony focuses on three topics. First, explaining why, in my view, connecting people to work is so important and not something that government benefits and transfers can replace. Second, reviewing the data on the declining health of the labor market for men in particular and the accompanying decline in labor force participation. And third, outlining the kinds of policies we might pursue in response in areas ranging from regulatory reform, to education reform, trade and immigration policy, organized labor, the safety net, and our programs of taxes and subsidies. Here I'd like to focus on 2 points in particular, because certainly a wide variety of factors influence the long-term slide in labor force participation for American men. For instance, changes in cultural norms and home environments may both be discouraging men from working and reducing their capacity. The labor market, meanwhile, has failed to generate attractive opportunities that prospective workers are capable of seizing. Attempts to allocate responsibility among these factors have set off two robust, but in my view, ultimately irrelevant debates. The first of these is, have wages technically risen or fallen? Men's median weekly earnings have fallen by 7% since 1979, if adjusted for inflation using the standard CPI from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. But an alternative measure from the Bureau of Economic Analysis suggests that earnings have increased over the period by 12%. Even using the more optimistic estimate, it's important to recognize the gains hold only for men with college degrees, only for women with college degrees. All other groups saw declines. It's also worth noting that the problem is particularly pronounced with younger men, exactly those who in many cases we are most concerned with connecting to the workforce in the first place. The U.S. Census Bureau reports that between 1975 and 2016, the share of men aged 25 to 34 earning less than $30,000 per year increased from 25% to 41%. And that, of course, is among those who are working, ignoring the higher share that are earning nothing. I think it's also important to recognize when we discuss these data that while my colleague, Dr. DeRugy, is correct, these data look different with respect to taxes and transfers and household income, neither of those metrics is relevant to how an individual worker would perceive the decision to enter the labor market. If anything, at the margin, the increases in taxes and transfers are likely to have made entering the workforce less attractive. But ultimately, whether wages are slightly lower or higher in real terms is beside the point. No one believes that a 5% wage decline over 40 years would produce a labor market exodus, while a 5% wage increase would flood the market with new workers. The important fact, regardless, would be that men's median earnings have fallen woefully behind the trajectory of growth in the wider economy and the rising costs associated with achieving a middle-class lifestyle. Our concern ultimately is not only about the absolute value of the wage, but also its relative value. The easiest way to see this is to recognize that the fact that men may have treaded water since 1970 is an arbitrary point of comparison. We might just as well ask whether or not men are doing better than they were in 1910, and if we truly believed an absolute wage was all that mattered, we might posit that as long as men were earning as much as they had been in 1910, there would be no problem. Obviously, I don't think anyone believes that, and so we shouldn't necessarily believe that stagnation since 1970 is any more acceptable. The second robust but irrelevant debate centers on attempts to allocate responsibility across the myriad factors that may be influencing men's behavior. Stagnant wages may be one problem, but many people view the cultural problem to be even larger. And some worry that if it is truly a cultural problem, then policymakers would be helpless. In my view, that's not the right way of looking at it. Regardless of how weight is assigned the various factors, the question for policymakers today is not how we got into the situation, but how to get out of it. Huge immovable cultural and economic burdens may push toward harmful decisions, but so too a number of factors push more constructively. Behaving responsibly, planning for the future, holding a job, sacrificing for a family. People are aware that these things really do have benefits. And in the past, in a world not unrecognizably different from the present, with many critical conditions resting in similar repose, men were more likely to work. Whatever marginal shifts changed outcomes for the worse, other marginal shifts, even different ones, can cause just as much change for the better. So whether major factors are cultural, whether major factors are ones that policymakers cannot affect, the question of us for today is what factors, economic or cultural, can policymakers affect? This is obviously most strongly the case when it comes to the labor market, the health of the economy, and the kinds of jobs that are created. If more and better jobs are more accessible to more people, I think most of us would agree more people would be more likely to work. And in achieving that goal, I believe better public policy can help. Thank you.
Thank you.